You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
I have been having this conversation just about on the daily, multiple times. How much higher can the real estate market possibly go? Sean, it's already sky high. It can't go much more. Buyers can't afford it. Yeah, well, they are, and they will, and this is going to go on for a while. So I do a Market in a Minute every month. It's a quick 1-minute video, and then I do another long podcast of our MLS statistics here on this channel as well. So if you're looking to fall asleep at night, turn on that podcast, and those statistics, they will put you to sleep. I almost fall asleep when I read them myself. No, it's not that bad, but real estate statistics, it's a necessary evil, but it's not exciting like some of the other things, like thieves stealing catalytic converters and other exciting things like that. Today, I'm going to read an article from Portland. Portland, now we know Portland as the place of civil unrest and the peaceful protesters and all kinds, and breaking into the Boys and Girls Club, because that's a good idea. Bash those windows, because nothing says, social protest more than bashing in the windows of the Portland Boys and Girls Club. No, that's literally just happened. We are reading about the housing market hits fever pitch, prices likely to increase more. And so this is literally something I'm talking about on the daily with my brokers, with my appraisers, with prospective buyers who are like, hey, should I really be buying this? I don't know. Is this market going to tank? There's the whole, the market's going to fall apart any day now. Those guys have been doing that for years, because guess what sells? Fear. Fear sells. So if you are afraid, you're going to read that article and go, oh, yeah, I knew it. I knew the market was going to tank. Now, I don't think it's going to tank, but I am also, it's going to have to slow down. And what goes up super fast typically comes down super fast. But we've got some interesting things going on in the marketplace that I don't know what it's going to take to slow it down. It's going to go on for a while. I think it goes on the rest of 2021. But what's happening is people who need a place to live, they're still buying homes. Interest rates are really low. And our supply, which I've been yammering on for years now, is just, it's too low. It's an imbalanced marketplace. 4 to 6 months is considered balance. Here in Seattle, we've got like 2 weeks. That's unheard of. I've been doing this forever, since the mid 80s, and I was involved in pulling data and stuff in the early 80s, way back when. And, we've never had a marketplace like this. I mean, this is unprecedented. So that's what we're talking about today. Market hits a fever pitch. What are prices going to do? Yeah, they're going to keep going up here for a while. Oh, I thought the market was going to tank. No. That's why we're talking about it here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Okay, before we get into it, if you're new here, my name is Sean Reynolds. I actually do own a couple of real estate companies. I own a real estate brokerage with 10 and change brokers, plus or minus, I don't know. I've got one of Seattle's oldest residential real estate appraisal firms. And I've been doing both of those for a long, long time. But you know what I like to do? I like to read you the news that you want to hear. Let's do that. Let's do that instead of that. I'll talk about that other ridiculous stuff. Real estate experts in Portland. And I thought I'd read from Portland because we love Portland. Portland gives us so much content. Real estate experts in Portland and at the national level say changes from the pandemic will likely continue to impact the housing market. Now, we had a roaring market, not as roaring as it is right now, because each day when I wake up, I think this can't go on that much longer. And yet it does. I'll hear these stories of, we had this deal that went over $100,000 over list. Oh yeah. Well, we had one that went $300,000 over list. We had one that went $600,000 over list. It's like, okay, what does that tell you? It tells you that this market is wildly imbalanced, and it makes me nervous as a real estate professional. It makes me nervous. And if you're a real estate professional out there and you're cheerleading this market, it should make you nervous too, but you may not have been doing it as long as I have. And that's why you're not nervous. Old guys, we get nervous because we see shadows that may or may not be there. Is this the Great Recession coming again, round 2? No. And we're going to talk about some of that as we get into it. More than a year into the pandemic, real estate experts say the housing market is hotter than ever, and buyers are left with many challenges to navigate. And when we went into the pandemic, the market was hot, and the whole pandemic and the low interest rates have just dumping fire on an already blazing bonfire, right? Just whoosh. It's crazy market. Jennie Huynh grew up in Portland and bought her first home in November. She and her partner had to make offers on 6 houses before an offer was accepted in Hillsboro. Only 6? That's pretty good. Congrats, Jennie. That's a job well done. Your broker did a great job, because we've got people who have done far more than that, and they're still looking. They're still making offers. Honestly, really brutal, Huynh said, of the months spent house hunting. We were definitely having to throw some elbows up to end up with the house. When she says throw some elbows up, she means things that are just nutty in real estate terms, like non-refundable earnest money deposit made directly to sellers. Meaning if there's any reason at all that you break the contract and you do not buy their home, they keep your earnest money. And we've seen stuff as high as 5% here in Washington. A big check, 5% of the purchase price, a big check. And if you don't buy it, that money is theirs. Doesn't get credited towards your purchase price. Had seen things like that. Waiver of appraisals. Hey, we want this house no matter what. We don't really care what the appraisal comes in. And here's Form 22A, which says that we're waiving the appraisal. And if the appraisal does come in low, we might waive it, or we'll bring in the extra cash to make up the difference. We understand that it's not worth what we're paying, but we want this house so badly. Here's what we're willing to do. We're willing to compromise all of the safeguards that are set in place to help a buyer out. Caveat emptor, name of my boat. What does that mean? Buyer beware. Buyers need to be aware in this market that nobody is protecting them. This is a seller's market for sure. So many people at the onset of the pandemic were like, it's going to become a buyer's market. And I'm like, well, you've got no supply and you got interest rates that are going to drop. How do you think that's going to work out? It's going to become a buyer's market. Okay, you go with that. How'd that work out? Shannon Janssen, a realtor with Coldwell-Banker BAIN in Portland, said the market has not eased since it picked up last year. If anything, it has hit a fever pitch, Janssen said. Homes are selling in one weekend. They're getting multiple offers. So if you're not in real estate, or if you don't know the drill, oftentimes there is an offer review date. And what that means is that on the listing in the MLS, it says offers to be reviewed as of this date. So the property is literally exposed to the market for 5-6 days, something like that. And then the real estate broker, along with her seller, they gather up all of the offers and they pick one, or they work them back and forth to get that price even higher. Hey, you're close. You're in the top 3 running of buying this home. Would you like to revise your price? And would you like to do a final and best offer? That's what's going on the daily, right? She and other realtors explained because of record low inventory, homes often sell for $50,000 to $100,000 over asking price. Now, something I haven't talked about is that we're seeing low appraisals come in all the time. We simply can't support the value. Why is that? Because they're not worth it on paper. The strict criteria that an appraiser has, you got to use closed sales data. And the market is moving so hard in an upward fashion, there aren't closed sales to support that. But Sean, you've got a willing buyer and a willing seller. Well, that seller is willing because they're getting a crap ton of money, and that buyer is willing to pay something way over what it's probably worth because they just want a house. They want to lock in that 30-year low mortgage. And yeah, rates have bumped up, but they're still historically, anything in the low 3s, that's a winner. You take that and say, thank you, may I have another, right? So experts believe that during COVID-19, more people working from home on top of other family members want more space. Buyers are desperate to beat out multiple competing offers with few houses on the market to choose from. Man, when I look at the MLS and I look at areas, the last few months, I'm looking at these, you get a map and you've got these green pins on the map. And those are homes that are available. And I'll like hit refresh because I'm like, there's nothing on here. I must have done my search criteria wrong. No, there's just no homes on the market. And these are some heavily populated suburban neighborhoods of Seattle, right? Mainly the east side is kind of what I look at. And it's like, there's literally the shelves are bare. There's nothing there. So that's what's going on. And you've got buyers who have been focusing on real estate because in the era of the COVID, home is really important. You can no longer just go, well, it kind of works for us. We'll just take it for now. And no, people are like, oh my gosh, if I have to be in this home any longer at all, this makes no sense. Sellers are saying, and investors are saying, wow, we can get top dollar. Let's put our home in the market. Now, we have had some more inventory come on, but that inventory, and I had this discussion with my girlfriend who works for the county in the assessor's department, and my oldest son, who is a licensed broker with Summit and also a real estate appraiser with Reynolds and Kline. He is doing crazy volume of appraisal. We had this discussion yesterday was that, how long could this possibly go on for? And how low is this supply going to go? And that, yes, there has been inventory that's come on, but it gets sucked up in pending sales faster than it can come on. So that's why there's more buyer demand out there than there are homes that are going to come online. And people say, well, yeah, but builders, they're building homes. No, that's not going to help at all. It's going to help a little bit, but there isn't enough supply. The pipeline from building a home to getting it to the point where it's marketable takes so long, and that we've been short on new construction homes since the Great Recession. So for years and years and years now, that problem isn't going to rectify itself anytime soon. So the factors that are creating this market that's just on fire, they're not going to slow down. They're not slowing down the summer of 2021, right? They're just not. We have buyers doing everything from waiving inspections to appraisals, Janssen said. From an insurance guy's perspective, that makes me really nervous, said Derek Wing of Pemco Insurance in Seattle. This market makes me really nervous for all the buyers that we represent because they're going in blind, purchasing a lot of these homes. No inspection, no appraisal, so you don't know what condition the home is. You don't know what the real value is because there isn't enough data to really tell you. Oftentimes when we're working on pricing, I'm just taking a guess because there's not enough data to say, okay, it's under this price, but it's above this price. It's somewhere in that range. And that's a lot of what I do is just, all right, this home has this criteria, but it's compared to this home, it's worse. So it's going to be less than that one. It's better than this one. So it's in that range. We don't even have the data to create a range half the time. So we're like, all right, so we go back 6 months or a year, which is a wildly different market. We're just going to have to kind of extrapolate that. And if you don't get any offers, well, then we were too high. And if you get a ton of offers, well, there's good buyer demand. Plus, we probably underpriced it a little bit, right? That's what's happening every day. So real estate experts will tell you what they think, but they're just guessing just like I am. They're totally guessing. Wing explained inspections before someone buys a property can reveal expensive problems, such as a damaged foundation. Insurance rarely covers a buyer if problems like that are discovered after the fact. So these buyers, they're literally going in without having any knowledge of what the condition of the home is, because if they make their offer subject to a building inspection, they're going to get beat out by somebody with more cash who isn't doing an inspection. So you've literally got the blind leading the blind on so many of these offers. Well, if they're doing it, I should do it too. And that is the market exuberance that makes a real estate professional uneasy, shall we say. So if you've been watching the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, I am not your normal rah, isn't this a great market kind of guy. I give you the real scoop. And this market makes me nervous. But also in the same breath, I have conversations every day and people are like, what's it going to take to slow this thing down? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's going to run like this for a while. The Fed's committed to keeping interest rates low. All right. There's still a ton of buyer demand out there. All right. Markets like Portland and Seattle, that even if you think, hey, the market is falling in on Portland and Seattle, it's not. They're pretty damn hot markets. They're experiencing appreciation that's pretty phenomenal. Seattle, second only to Phoenix, right? And yet we've got all this social unrest going on, all this crazy stuff, and people want to point at that and go, that's why Seattle sucks. Okay, that part of Seattle does suck. All right. Not going to argue there. And I cover that. It actually doesn't suck because it gives me a lot of podcast, material. And, but the real estate aspect of these cities that are in big tech corridors, I mean, it is crazy, the numbers we're seeing. This is unprecedented in the history of the U.S. housing market, said Jeff Tucker, an economist with the national real estate website Zillow. His company's research shows many people held off on selling their homes during the pandemic. Now that vaccines are becoming widespread, that could really change, Tucker said. That would mean more homes being put on the market by summer, the peak selling season. We are not seeing that happen to a large extent, a little bit of more inventory. But what people aren't reading beyond that is, and they were all purchased and then some because of the strong buyer demand. People are like, oh, well, there's more inventory that was already sold by the time it hit the market. And people are like, oh, yeah. Okay. So when's this market going to end? Don't know. That would mean more homes being put on the market by summer, the peak selling season. That's not going to happen. I mean, you might have some more, but no. Because a lot of sellers are still holding off. Why would you sell right now? If you can get XYZ percentage more per month, not per year, per month right now. That's the macro or the micro detail that we're working with is, it's going to go up another 5% next month. And that's an exaggeration, but it's probably not that far off in a lot of these markets. Another thing that we're seeing is that the farther out markets are leveling up. They're all coming up because people can't afford in the inner city, not the inner city markets, but the closer in suburban markets where they really want to live. So they are going further out. And so your buyer demand is out there where it once wasn't. And so we've got this leveling up of price structure that is, I mean, if you're a real estate guy and you care about stats, it's pretty darn interesting. I mean, it's pretty wild. However, even with increased inventory on the horizon, the number of buyers remains high. Millennials now in their 30s make up about a third of new buyers. They face this record housing shortage. It's all about supply and demand, Tucker explained. We didn't really build enough homes on the supply side ever since the Great Recession. It was like a storm that was ready to break at some point, and now it has begun. It's been storming now for a long time. Let's be honest. It just has. The pandemic housing market differs from the 2008 recession in one key way, and this is what I've been talking about forever: supply. So in order to have pricing start to drop, you've got to have a lot of supply on the market. That top tier home that got put on the market that isn't selling, they reduce their price below the next guy in line. That next guy in line, he can't sell his home. He drops that price. Third guy in line, he can't sell his home, been on the market for long. He knows he's at the top. In order to sell it, he's got to drop his price. And on and on and on it goes. And that was the Great Recession. We had way more homes on the market, way more supply back then. Right now, you wouldn't have that happen because you've got 2 weeks of supply. You got 2 weeks of supply. So you don't have those homes tiered. They're going to get bought up. Don't have them to sit on the market. They're not there. All right. All right. Janssen said the number of homes on the market during the recession was significantly higher, with many going into foreclosure. But now, if you're in a position where you need to sell because you can no longer afford your home and can't make your payments, you're going to be able to sell because you've got equity. Even if you bought 6 months ago, you're probably going to be able to sell and cover your 10% in all your closing costs. That's your 6% or 5% or 6% in total real estate costs, your excise tax here in Washington, your title, your escrow, your transfer fees, all that good stuff known as closing costs. You're going to be able to recoup that, and you're not going to have to go into an either short sale or a foreclosure situation. Experts expect home prices to continue rising between 5 and 10% next year. Low interest rates may also increase, adding to buyer costs. So we had a bump up just recently in mortgage rates above 3%. They were hovering under 3 for a while. And I think that really kind of got buyers going like, oh, okay, rates can bump up. So I think we're experiencing a wave right now because we've got more activity on the Summit side now than I think we've ever had. And so that combined with this market makes me nervous. I mean, it's just one of those things where as a real estate guy, you're like, okay, I know I should be super happy and excited for where we are. But number one, this isn't sustainable, right? And what goes up typically comes down, right? But we've got things like market super cycles also. You got San Francisco, whoosh, price-wise. You know what I mean? Seattle is kind of on one of those ramps as well. So is that one of those? I don't know. It's kind of these are unprecedented times where guys like me who depend on data to formulate their thought processes, I don't have the data. So I'm like, I'm just kind of like you are if you're a non-professional in real estate. I don't know. Here's my best guess. Well, this is what I'm going with. So that's what happens. Lumber to build homes is another factor, according to the National Association of Home Buyers. Lumber prices skyrocketed more than 200% since April of 2020. 200%. That's crazy. With all this in mind, real estate experts say waiting for prices to come down is not likely to benefit potential home buyers. They suggest adjusting expectations by searching for homes under budget and further away from city centers. It's what everybody's doing, right? Another option is to downsize in favor of a townhouse or a condominium. Okay, but nobody wants that during the era of the Rona. Smaller, not good. Bigger, better. The downtown Portland condo market is one place where it's actually a buyer's market right now. Agreed. So is Seattle, and so is Bellevue, the condo market. Recent home buyer Jennie Huynh offered advice from her own experience, suggesting people write a personal letter to the seller. Dear seller, here's why I would love to buy your home. See those all day long. This is who I am, and this is why I'm interested in your house and how I'd like to make memories in your home. It can really come down to if you can strike a chord with them personally. These are all things that buyers are doing to get homes. While exhausted from the months of searching, ultimately Huynh is happy with her new home. It's something I'm grateful to have to be able to get my hands on, she said. And that's what, buyers, when they get a home in this market, they are breathing an enormous sigh of relief. They're like, whew, sure glad that is over. That was brutal. And we're putting these buyers through this process, and buyers are wanting to go through the process because they're getting an incredible, probably once in a lifetime interest rate, and they need the house. Maybe they've got an expanding family, whatever. Maybe it's a millennial looking to get in. But the flip side to that is, are we, how much longer can these prices continue at this rate before the buyers in these marketplaces go, all right, yep, I'm out. No can do. I can no longer afford. That's what I'm kind of wondering. And yet we don't see an end in sight of that. And with a lot of these tech companies and the markets we're talking about where things are really crazy, like Seattle, there's a lot of new jobs being created. There's a lot of companies coming in because they're feeding from the same employee pool. And that's what's driving these markets. Even though this is a national phenomenon going on right now, it's worse in some markets. And a lot of these markets, these are the ones you're hearing stories about. And that's why you're hearing some joker from Seattle talk about this fairly often. I don't talk about it a lot because the storyline really hasn't changed. It just needs to get out there. When I do the market in the minute each month, I'm like, is there anything new that I can bring to the table here? No, pretty much not. I just kind of want to say, yep, it just got worse. That same thing I said last month, apply that, plus put a factor of XYZ on it. That's where we're at now. And I just want to end the video. And people would go, what? That doesn't really help me out. Well, it does because, all right, same market. Nothing's changed. So that's kind of where we're at. Real estate market is crazy on fire. I don't see it slowing down. I also don't see prices slowing down. They could, if we get a little bit more inventory come on, you might see a little bit of a summer kind of slow down because usually what happens is we have a great spring season and into early summer, and then it slows down because people want to take vacations, all that good stuff. But since the whole Rona thing, all bets have been off. The market hasn't been normal. Last year, we had half of March was really good. March 15th hit, market fell apart through April. Then in May, we started to see signs of recovery. And then all of a sudden, we were back off to the races again. It was wild. It's just like, we're in the midst of a global pandemic and we're selling how much real estate? That is nuts. That's going for how much? Prices are going up during a pandemic. Wouldn't have ever thought we'd see this. But hey, you know what? It's 2021. That's what we're doing. All right, that's it for me on this one. Hey, we did a podcast on actual real estate here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll get back to my regularly scheduled content on the next one. Don't worry. We'll talk about rioting and, all that good stuff. Because, I mean, that's ultimately what we care about here, right? Thanks for joining in. Love to have you share this content if you feel it's helpful at all to you. Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you guys soon. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.